So this is the fourth video in cutting out objects from, at the moment, a single JPEG, which is a blue JPEG, which is filling the screen. So we've used the marquee tool there. You remember that that's got both the rectangular and the elliptical tools, they're presets. The polygonal cutout tool. We've used the rubber to cut out various window shapes, hard and soft. And I'm not going to use the pen tool. Now, the pen tool is this one here. And if we right click over that pen tool, it says pen tool, freeform pen tool, curvature pen tool, and various other options which we'll come to. The pen tool, strangely enough, is not really a pen. The pen tool is a cutout selection tool. It's been strangely named. I'm going to use the freeform pen tool. That's extremely useful, as we will see. Now, I click on the freeform pen tool. Remember, I've rasterized that blue layer. And by just simply holding down the cursor, I can now draw a random shape. And once I close that shape, it produces this. Lots and lots of dotted lines. We'll come to the use of the dotted lines, or rather these little, what are called anchor points on this continuous line, which the pen tool has produced. Now, if I right-click over this closed line that I've produced, it gives me an option to make a selection. And here it says feather radius 1 pixel. That's a slightly soft edge. I can have feather radius no pixels, which is the most precise edge. We'll keep it to 1 pixel at the moment because I want a slightly soft edge to this object. And OK it. Once I've OK'd it, we get the little ant scurrying around it, and that means it's selected. And of course, because it's been selected, I can cut it out. You notice the edge is slightly soft, which is actually usually quite a good thing. And because it's usually quite a good thing, because very hard edges look incredibly unrealistic when juxtaposed against each other, and that soft edge allows for a blending of images to look more realistic. Remember, we can go backwards if I've cut out the wrong thing. We can step backwards there. I've gone back to that. Remember, we can do the exact opposite of this selection. We select, we inverse, and then we do that, and we've now got this object. Now that we've got this object, we can move that object around. We can, of course, now start to edit that object. If we don't like the fact that it's right but not quite how we want it, we can, of course, select the rubber and select, let's say, a slightly smaller size. There's the circle that we're working with. I'm keeping it very soft at the moment, so I can just slightly tickle these lumps. I could, of course, be very crude, but I don't want to be very crude for the minute in terms of movement across it. That's a mistake. So because it's a mistake, I'm going to step backwards and undo that. You see there's an awkward little dent there, so I'm just going to rub that out. So this is working exactly like a pencil rubber, and you can see that just around that curve, we want it to look less angular on those curves, so I can just soften that a little bit, and it's producing a softer shape. It could be that I'm actually using too soft a rubber, because it's very soft rubber, has a very wide spill around the edge of a sort of softening and a gradation, whereas in fact if we go to a very hard rubber, move that slide up, we can actually do a much more precise job of working on these curves. So of course a slight mistake produces that or that, which could be very awkward. So one has to use these slides according to what particular job at hand. Of course, if you move into this object, if we don't like that bump there, we can zoom right in on that, go much, much closer, and use a much smaller rubber. So actually you can work on much more detail. I've gone down to 9 pixels now for the rubber. It's still hard, and you notice I can very gently start to move in, and it just smooths that lump off. So that pen tool has produced a random shape. Now, that pen tool also, and we'll use this much more later on, but that pen tool can also produce straight lines. If we use the standard pen tool there, if I click there and 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 click there, I haven't actually quite closed it, you notice. So I need to just go into that, into that, into that. And this point here with the pen tool, just close that, and it's now closed. I can now right click, make a selection. Okay, and remember, those little ants now mean that it's been, little scurrying ants, means that that shape has now been selected, and we can cut that out like that. So this is really a summary of all the different ways that we can cut out shapes. We're going to do cutouts in much more detail and much more complexity later, but it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with, just to summarize, the fact that we've got the marquee tool, the polygonal tool, the rubber, and the pen tools, all of which are at our disposal to cut shapes out, manipulate shapes, and edit shapes according to our specific needs.